Hello. Today we're going to talk about health inequities and what is being done about them. Now, health inequities occurs on the social gradient of illness, so that's how you would define where you're at. You need to look at the person's situation and their social problems. Depending on where they are on that gradient, the better or the worse the situation is. If you are on the social gradient where you're in a bad situation and you've accumulated lots of social problems, you move further down this gradient, and it makes you at higher risk of getting a lifestyle and getting a life that is bad for your health. The accumulation of social problems and a bad situation means that you're worse off is something that we in Danish call that you are socially exposed. I can't find social exposing or social exposed or social exposure on the literatures that don't involve Danish, but I think it's such a great word that I'm going to use it. And it basically just means that if you are socially exposed, you are at a risk of developing problems that in turn makes your life worse than if you were well off. There are different levels of social exposure, so you can be in a bad situation but not have a lot of social problems. And yeah, you might be at risk of developing something that makes your life worse for you, but it's not that bad as if you were further down the social exposure gradient where you have accumulated lots of social problems and you're in a bad situation, where the further down you move on this gradient, the higher risk you are of developing things that can make your life worse. Here is the debate, because this thing is what creates the health inequities, and it's a very complex subject, and there's lots of different factors and lots of different areas where you could start or should start. But how is that gonna affect the rest of the citizens and the rest of the people that live in your country? And how are people that are being targeted, or maybe the whole nation is being targeted, how does that affect them? How does it give backlash? Do people receive it if they offer, let's talk about smoking. Smoking is, when you look at it statistically in Danish statistics, there are more people who smoke the shorter the education they have, which means they are lower down on the socio-economic ladder and they're more socially exposed. In Denmark, we offer different courses to help people stop smoking. We don't discriminate on age, gender, skin color, socioeconomic status. We offer it for everyone, and everyone gets the same slot, they get the same time, they get the same amount of work, and they get the same space in the queue. You enter the queue, you stay in the queue, and then it's your turn, you go. No one jumps ahead. Now, that is a great project, but in terms of health inequity, it might actually make it worse. And this is a really great incentive because it targets the nation and it doesn't discriminate whichever socioeconomic status you find yourself in. It just says, hey, this is something for everyone. Everyone can stop smoking. But statistics also show that if you are from a person with a higher socioeconomic status, you are more likely to accept the offer and use the offer. Whereas if you were from a lower socioeconomic status, you might not accept the offer as much as someone from a higher socioeconomic status. And there are many many reasons for this, which I am gonna get into, but just as a little teaser, it could be something to do with there are just so many more big problems in a person's life who's of a lower socioeconomic status than stopping smoking right this second. But that's why projects and incentives are so good It's a step in the right direction, but man, it's so freaking hard to actually do something. But if we never keep trying, we'll never get there. So I appreciate all the projects and the incentives that people make, because it does make a tiny bit of a difference. And that's what we need. Just keep moving forward with baby steps. There are lots of different reasons for these health inequities, as I teased about before, or being socially exposed, if we're going to use the Danish term. But one of the major ones that I have already highlighted is, which socioeconomic status do you belong to, or are you currently in? If you are a lower socioeconomic status, your health will likely be worse than a person with a higher socioeconomic status. Same goes for the degrees. We can see that the people who've got longer degrees or stay in school for longer have higher health scores, like they're more healthy, they have a better life. Whereas if you have a lower level of education, you're less healthy. Things like your neighborhood also plays a massive part in it, both the neighborhood itself, but also the norm in the neighborhood. Do you live in a neighborhood where you see people running and biking and doing all of these activities, physical activity things? Or are you in a neighborhood where the person living opposite you has back pains and high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes? And it's actually very weird if you don't have type 2 diabetes, increased blood pressure, I forgot the word, and cardiovascular diseases. What is the norm in the neighborhood that you live in? That has a lot to say as well. Loneliness, and with that, family, friends. If you are lonely and you live alone and you have no one, you are worse off than people with a family and friends. I'm not talking about the amount of friends you have, but it's the quality. Do you feel like you have someone? If you don't, you are also worse off. Economy obviously plays a role, because if you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, can you afford it? Are you able to take care of your disease? That's just in general. Do you know what to do if you get a disease? Do you know what to do? Do you know how to take care of yourselves? What sort of knowledge have you learned, both educational, life experiences, and lifestyle, disease or illness wise? Do you have any chronic illnesses? Do you have any mental disorders like depression? The last few reasons would be such as if you have more than one illness, more than one chronic illness. You could have both type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, or type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. If you've got more than one, that can also cause health inequities. Or if you've got infectious diseases, that is also a cause of health inequities. And the last few factors is diet, because diet really impacts the whole body and it occurs over a long period of time. So that can be a major cause to some lifestyle illnesses. Physical activity and physical inactivity. How active are you? Are you physical inactive? And again, that links in with the neighborhood and the neighborhood norms. What's the norm? Do people run? Do people not run? Do people walk? Whatever. Third one is smoking. Do you smoke? Do you not smoke? Are you being exposed to secondhand smoke? That would be if I smoked and you were sitting next to me and you were inhaling the smoke that I was blowing out into the room. Now, smoke isn't just the big cloud that comes out. It's also invisible, because you get these particles that comes out that's like they could be in here. If I was a smoker, you can't even see them. They would be here, but I don't smoke, so they're not there. And then if you are a person who has friends who smoke, and let's say they smoke in their apartment, how often do they ventilate? So are you being exposed to secondhand smoke, or do you smoke yourself? If you smoke, how often do you smoke, and how many cigarettes do you smoke a day? Fourth one, I believe, out of my little shenanigans, out of the whole list of reasons for health inequities, is alcohol. No alcohol use is free of risks, but if you drink small amounts on different days, you're keeping your risk level at a minimum. But do you do you drink excessively, or do you drink moderately? What is your drinking habits like? Do you not drink often, but when you drink, do you binge drink? Like, do you have more than 4 different drinks, or do you have more than 4 drinks on an evening or a day or whatever? That adheres to binge drinking. What is your drinking pattern like, and how often do you drink? That also plays a major role in health inequities. So with everything that I have said, what is actually being done about these health inequities? Now, there are soup kitchens that homeless people can come up to and have food, and you have a little chat, so they get that food, the nutrition, hopefully good nutrition, so that adheres to the diet, and then they get someone to talk to, so they get this network of friends. I nearly forgot the word, but they have this social connection and social interaction, which can help decrease the loneliness. There are also hostels for homeless people. I know that in Denmark, for people who aren't homeless but are still very socially exposed or down the social gradient, there is stuff like the Cafe Parasol, where they make cafes where people can come in and they can drink coffee and chat and talk to each other and do these different activities, either knit or draw, or they go for walks, or they go to the gym and have a little Zumba session or something like that, because you can be socially exposed or down the social gradient even if you're not homeless. So there are lots of different gradients where you need to look at it, like health inequities doesn't just occur for one group of people. With that said, it is a very difficult task to challenge and overcome health inequities, but I think it's a very, very, very major issue, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So that we have the Sustainable Development Goals. You've probably heard of them. We work towards them, and if you don't know them, you can Google them. They will come up. You just write SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. I'm working for the one called number 10, which means that I reduce inequalities. I'm currently looking at, in a Danish context, ethnic minorities and why they choose the education that they do, and that is so that I can look at the reasons for health inequities, which is the one about education, because then if I know which education they want to choose, I can roughly calculate how long they have been or how long they're going to spend on their education, which I can sort of calculate into like how high their chances of being healthy and where they are on that statistical gradient would be. So I'm looking into one specific factor because each factor is massive, but I think it's very interesting to see that. So that is the subject that I have chosen. But even though it's a big subject and a big factor and lots of different reasons to tackle health inequities, I think it's worth a shot. And every step that we take and every research that we make and it's gonna sound like the Police song, every breath you take. Maybe I want to listen to that. But whatever step we take in the right direction will make a difference, no matter how big or how small. Everything counts, and I think it's good to try. On that note, thank you so much for listening. If you've got any questions, drop them down below. I'll try my best to answer them. If you want an in-depth explanation of something, that can also be made. Just ask. I love you guys. Bye-bye.